I started getting fat as fuck and decided it would be a good idea to up my dosage. In the end, I was pitting 600 Testy and 500 of Tren every, 3 to 4 days. Did you really, dude? Did you really? What's up, guys? Derek from ourplace408s.com. Today we are going to be reacting to another fantastic tale, or at least I hope it will be, because I don't want to actually read these beforehand because I don't want to ruin it for myself and have to read it fucking twice. So yeah, here's the hoping. This is called Since It's Trending. Here's my story. So before I get into this, I'm aware that I've been a dumbass in past cycles. By the way, the only research I do into these before I read them is I go to the comments underneath to make sure it doesn't seem like it's just a troll who's like making up some bullshit. So anyways, seems to be legitimate, at least from what I could tell, but we'll get into it. Throwaway for obvious reasons. To start off, I'm a 21-year-old male who's been lifting since I was 15. Okay, the fact that he's 21 and he's already had horror stories is not, probably shows that he might have started a bit too early. So he's been lifting since he was 15 and been into PEDs for the past 2 years. Okay, well, that's not too bad. Sophomore year in college, I decided to try SARMs and ran a 6-ish week cycle. And by the way, when I say it's not bad, I was like, when I heard 15, I was like, oh fuck, he's gonna be like 16 when he tried them. 19 is obviously not as bad as it could have been, but just keep in mind, like, your brain is not fully developed till you're 25. I'm not saying you should wait until you're 25. I'm just saying a lot of people don't actually have the education to pursue this shit in an efficient and intelligent way until multiple years into research. Not, their first year of researching on steroid forums and shit. It takes a while to develop a working understanding of this stuff, how to safely approach their deployment, how to make the most of your exposure to it so then you aren't just unnecessarily taxing your organs for lackluster gains. That kind of shit. You only have so many blasts in the tank before your organs eventually give out. So you want to make the most of those if you are going to expose yourself to that kind of risk. So anyways, he's been into gear for 2 years, or PEDs. Sophomore year in college, decided to try SARMs, ran a 6-week cycle of RAD 140 at 30 to 45 milligrams a day. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm convinced the bumfuck lab I got it from gave me some or other pro hormone instead, because I had issues with it exacerbating my puberty-induced gyno that decided to stick around. Well, that could be a result of massive amounts of suppression and SHBG being crushed into the ground and numerous things. Like, this is not an unexpected outcome when you're using something massively suppressive to your testosterone production and potentially creating a imbalance between androgens and stimulatory inputs to your breast tissue. So definitely could happen. Anything suppressive could definitely put you in a risky position where you don't have that. It's not like RAD 140 is super androgenic, or at least it does not appear to be, given its selective nature for inhibiting breast tissue development. So if you crush your testosterone levels into the fucking dust and you're trying to balance out all of the some estrogenic activity that is still residual, the progestogenic activity, the GH-IGF-1, that kind of shit, and then you have no androgens really to facilitate it, you could be in a pretty compromised position in some cases. However, during this time, I went from a recovering anorexic 114 pounds to a stupidly shredded 140 at 5'9". But this wasn't enough for me, and I wanted to pin. Since I chose the most intense SARM I could find, I wanted to hop into Tren right away. It makes me wonder, like, how these guys even got to my subreddit if they thought like this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, maybe they had a bad experience and then they, tried to learn after. I guess that could be it. Like, you would never come to the conclusion of doing this kind of a cycle if you've seen my shit, obviously. Let's see. So he chose 300 mgs of test per week and 250 Tren for 10 weeks. However, that didn't last long. Right after I started my cycle, gym shut down due to COVID. Dude, this wasn't that long ago then. This was like a fucking year ago, dude. Stupidly, I just continued the cycle while eating like shit and playing video games for basically the entire 10-week cycle. I started getting fat as fuck and decided it would be a good idea to up my dosage. In the end, well, I guess I can't say it was definitely a year ago, because I'm thinking in the context of where I live, maybe gyms were closed, like, what was the earliest they could have been closed? Like January 2020? Like, I don't think anyone was really shutting shit down in January 2020. It might have been February, March-ish, right? So anyway, that wasn't that long ago. Right after I started my cycle, gym shut down, continued the cycle while eating like shit and playing video games for basically the entire 10-week cycle. Exactly what you don't want to do. Again, you only have so many blasts in the tank. When you're exposing your organs to this kind of stress, you don't want to be doing something like this. I started getting fat as fuck and decided it would be a good idea to up my dosage. In the end, I was pitting 600 Testy and 500 of Tren every, 3 to 4 days. Did you really, dude? Did you really? And kept that up for the remaining 8 or so weeks. I had no idea what Tren even did in the human body and ended up getting some pretty awful progestogenic side effects. My nipples protruded through any shirt I would wear, and I could get this weird oily secretion to come out if I squeezed my nipples. Kind of like a pre-lactation. Luckily, I didn't aromatize too much, and my puberty gyno remained mostly unchanged. Thank God for that. That's not even to mention my mental state during this time. It's probably fucked. I was never the type of dude to pick fights, but found myself in pretty extreme cases of road rage nearly every time I'd get in the car to go anywhere. At this point, I'd been dating my ex-girlfriend for about a year. Wow, dude. An ex-girlfriend you're dating, whilst on over a gram of gear on your first cycle, with over almost half of it being Tren. Not a good mix, not a good mix. And things were going pretty steady. My Tren-fueled mental state aside, she wasn't the most faithful girl out there. In the middle of this, I happened upon her text messages from a day when she told me she was going to the library to study with friends and left my dorm to get picked up by a dude and go out for coffee. This sent me spiraling. I wasn't going to classes. I was drinking nearly every day, on top of those dosages, and was just taking my emotional pain out on anyone and everyone in my life. I was generally an insufferable asshole and ruined a majority of my college friendships. I also cheated on her serially for several months until I was able to put aside the Tren insecurity and leave her. I thought in my mind that'd make me feel better about the situation in some shape or form, and it definitely did not, lol. Coming off the cycle was when I experienced the worst side effects. I was urinating constantly and could feel a dull ache in my kidneys on a daily basis until the Tren totally got out of my system. Luckily, I had no issues with erectile dysfunction and was able to get myself back to normal function. Over this time, I'd say I packed on roughly 20 pounds of lean mass and a fuck ton more of fat. I looked like a pile of hot shit. Since then, I've learned a lot about PED usage and pharmacology, and I've done a handful of successful test-only cycles. How the fuck did you do a handful of successful test-only cycles when the gym shut down a year ago and a couple months? Like, what could you have done? Like, a handful would be like the entire year, you know? Like, what, a 12-week cycle of test? Like, you do a handful of those, that's over a year, dude. Like, what? I don't know the timeline. This would need some clarification here. I wanted to see how Tren would affect me if I did it under the right circumstances. I'm prepping for an NPC Classic Physique show and felt it might be an appropriate addition. Sitting on 300 tests and 250 Tren a week split into 2 dosages has been fantastic for my recomp, and I'm left at my peak physique ever of 190 and around 8% body fat. Mental sides are so much more manageable than they were at such a high dose, and being able to rep a 225 bench on a deficit makes it feel worth it. I've got quite a few weeks to go before I'm stage ready, but I'd be happy to update this as I go along. So obviously with Tren, a lot of people don't realize how effective it is at dosages much lower than previously thought to be needed to be efficacious. Like back in the day, I recall it was the classic cycle, if you're going to do test and Tren, would be, well, 500 mgs is your minimum test base, obviously, because you can't possibly do less than that. Take your 500 mgs of test and shut the fuck up, of course, we all know that. And then the Tren, if you're using an anthate, you need at least 400 milligrams, and if you're doing acetate, it's got to be 300 at least. And obviously with the ester weight, you can get away with less, but 300 minimum. That was the thought process on the forums, like, not that long ago, dude. Not that long ago. So 250 Tren A, more than enough, dude. More than enough. A lot of people don't realize the original ampules were 76 milligrams for Parabolin, and a lot of the top pros were only using like 2 to 3 a week at most. At least purportedly, who fucking knows for sure. But they were hard to get. They were exotic. They were fucking very difficult to get a hold of. And when you did, they would be sparingly used to the point where it sounded like the majority of them, kind of the consensus was, it would be 1, 2, or 3 a week of Parabolin. So that would be at most, 200 and whatever the fucking math on that is. But, the low 200s in milligrams at most. Edit, I forgot to mention some other sides from that first Tren blast. I had noticeable hair thinning and pretty extreme cystic acne. Obviously, part of that comes from the dosage exposure too. I'm still struggling with slowly disappearing acne scars across my chest, shoulders, and back. In my subsequent cycles, I've been experimenting with high-dose vitamin A as opposed to Accutane, and it has helped beautifully. My hair isn't noticeably different than it was before that blast, but goddamn did I grow body hair like an ape. So that was a pretty, I guess it seems like it was quick, I guess, relative to the fucking movie I did last time, but I'm actually at 10 minutes already, so I guess this is like a normal video length for the majority of people. You got it wrong, bro. Just trend harder than last time. Good pun. What the fuck? Damn, bro. Waiting for Derek to make a YouTube video on this. Obligatory sorry for the phone formatting. By the way, if you haven't seen this, I thought this was fucking hilarious. And it's like sort of, I guess, I thought that was fucking clever and funny. And it's just like, obviously it's Photoshop, but I mean like, I don't know. It's like badly, but also very good Photoshopped at the same time. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, as far as this guy, I'm not sure what this timeline is. It makes me sort of question the story entirely. But, you know, maybe my, you know, speculative, you know, timing of trying to figure out how this makes sense is off. Like he says, at, you know, lockdown, he was on the first cycle or whatever, and then he basically did nothing. And then he somehow ran a handful of cycles after that, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense timeline-wise. You know, maybe I'm missing something, but at the end of the day, it sounds like his usage is a lot more reasonable now. That's good that he figured it out quick. You know, there's a lot of people that will continue to abuse these high dosages, and like when it's unnecessary too. Like it's not like this guy needed those dosages. You know, even if he could tolerate it, he didn't need that amount of drug exposure to build his physique at like 190 pounds or whatever he said he was. So like he was at fucking 140, and then he chose to use the most intense SARM he could find, and then Tren. Like was it justified to get even the Tren? Like no, obviously not. And the dosage certainly wasn't justified, but at least he's reeling back his use and doing it a bit smarter now. And again, at the end of the day, the moral of the story is always know your shit, and you only have so many blasts in the tank. So if you're going to do it, do not do stuff like this thinking, oh, I could just, you know, redeem myself on the next one. Like, no, dude, like have your fucking shit dialed in. You know how to eat, you know how to train, you have your rest and sleep hygiene is dialed in. You're not, you know, working a fucking, you know, shift work job where you're getting like half-assed, like 4-hour sleeps in or something. Like make sure everything's dialed in. Especially if you're going to expose yourself to something like Tren, you want to make the most of it while your organs are undergoing fucking war. So anyways, that is the takeaway. And obviously, ideally, just don't touch any of the shit. That would be the safer thing. So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates.dates, Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, it's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. My recommended lab tests and diagnostics to stay on top of your health, especially if you are going to expose yourself to some of this kind of shit. You need to have pre-exposure blood work as a baseline, mid-exposure blood work to see what the worst your body will be in condition-wise, and get a you know, baseline reading of understanding how damaged or, you know, at risk you become when you expose yourself to this kind of shit. And then post-cycle to make sure you are recovered and on the right track to attenuating the damage, so to speak. So that is all in the video description below to check out, as well as anything else I am associated with, including my Gorilla Mind nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode pre-workout formulas, my recommended diet model for newbies who don't really know how to simultaneously hit their macros and their micronutrient intake, which is something that is commonly overlooked, and obviously has a huge role in how much muscle you're going to grow even if you're on fucking Tren. If you're not eating a good diet that is micronutrient rich, you are going to get subpar results. And anything else I'm associated with, it's all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.